Hello, my name is Layla Andrews and welcome to my weekly analysis where I look at the charts for the week ahead. This is going to be for the week commencing the 2nd of July. It's a little bit late because I had a recording issue which is now fixed. So we're going to be looking at GBP, and as usual I like to start with a monthly chart, and this of course is of particular interest to us now because we have some price action that we can actually refer to, seeing as June has closed over the weekend. So if we look at this particular price action bar we have here, we can see that it's a fairly bullish looking bar. We've had a push into resistance. We had a return to the range high, which was at the 127 level. Let me just double check that. I think it might actually even be the 126 level. Apologies. Return to the 126 level, which was fully rejected, and price is now trying to push its way through the 1.3 level. Now, as a monthly bar, it has actually just by a small amount of pips actually closed above the psychological level of 1.3. So it's going to be a case of what we can see on the lower time frames to ascertain what could be coming next. However, just judging by this particular formation of bars that we've got here, we have to note that this is rather different to what we've seen before. This is a pullback after a rundown, and the same here, pullback after the rundown, but these are much smaller. They are much more sort of sharp, whereas this has a flatter base, and this is indicative of price actually trying to climb above. So we've had a range, price has climbed above and has actually retested this range high and has rejected it. So this is a rather different set of circumstances that we're looking at. What's also interesting is that if you take note of the 10 EMA here and the 20 EMA, they have provided very solid dynamic resistance all the way down throughout this period, whereas now we are just about starting to climb above. The first bar to do this was the April bar, which was a nice solid bullish bar which took us out of this range. Then we had a little indecision bar, which basically for me in this case was potentially about a pause rather than an actual return. What did of course happen was that we did get a test down, which is a fair number of pips if you're looking at a smaller time frame. But just as we are looking at the longer term time frames for the time being, this is just one bar of activity. So I'm going to take it in the context that this didn't really go anywhere, if that makes any sense. Certainly on the higher time frame, it didn't really go anywhere. So my analysis of this is that this bar didn't have any strong intention to reverse this particular bullish bar. It was really about just having a pause. We've had our test down, as I have said, and we have now closed a little bit higher. I would have preferred it if we had closed above the high of this little doji bar, but we haven't. So this doesn't mean that there isn't a more sort of full intention towards bullishness, because price action leads us in that direction. But it's a question of if I had preferences, I would rather this had closed above the high of this little doji, but it hasn't. So that's it's not going to have a huge impact on the rest of my analysis, but it's just a preference. So we have here a bullish looking bar which needs to move to its next level of interest. Now the next level of interest for me is and of course it's going to be on the smaller time frames, a much more sort of cyclical affair, but my next idea of where price might like to go throughout the next week, and obviously these are monthly moves, so this could take a little while, but I would like to see price coming towards the 20 and connecting with that, and if it rebounds in a downward movement and then picks up another higher low, then we may see that price is going to continue with this, what looks like the beginnings of a process of trying to move through the EMAs, turning them from resistance-based dynamic resistance into a more sort of supportive dynamic. Support really. So these levels that I've got of interest are going to connect with this channel line bisecting with the trend line. So sorry, let me just explain what I mean. This is the channel line which has a lot more clarity on the weekly chart, and this is my monthly trend line. Just as a note, when I'm putting on trend lines, I don't mind if I have a large spike like this through, if everything else around it is connecting nicely. This is obviously Brexit related stuff, and we've had some fairly sharp news on GBP, so it does tend to swing around a little bit. So we're getting a lot more in terms of big bars and long tails and extreme moves out of what you'd call context. So I'm happy with the fact that this is touched. It's testing this bar here. It's testing quite comfortably this whole range of sort of sideways downward sloping price action here, and of course we're connecting with the top. So I'm quite happy with this position. Where this leads to is going to be approximately the 133 level, which also very nicely connects with the 20 EMA, which is now pushing down towards that sort of zone. In fact, it'll probably come quite close to it. There's also, just to give you a little bit of a heads up, there's also a key level coming up at 135, and that also bisects nicely with the 50 fib, which is this top here to this low to give us this retracement. So the 50 fib is at 135. Which is also just on top of this little bit of this tiny little bit of paused price action, if you like. So that's where I'm seeing the next stages. 133 is of interest to me for the next move up, seeing as this is giving us bullish indications at the moment, and we can only ever read it in as such. If something comes out that's fundamental information that reverses all of this, then so be it. But from a technical point of view, this all sits in line with bullish activity. Let's have a look at the weekly and see what's going on here. So as I said, channel lines give you a little bit more clarity on the weekly than they do on the monthly. You can see that quite clearly that this has pretty nice cycles, which of course is something rather indicative of, let me just make this a bit smaller, rather indicative of a different type of personality that's occurring prior to here. We had a little bit of cyclicity trying to eke its way up, but it's actually mostly just quite choppy, and this had a go but really sort of gave up quite quickly, whereas these are quite defined. This is nice and clear. Also of key importance is the fact that we have actually managed to create a high here which has taken out this level of resistance here, and we've also got this very large bullish bar for the Friday, the week ending Friday just gone past as well. So this has strong intentions. It's opened at one end and closed at the other, and that usually means that it's got, as I say, strong intentions, unless of course it's an enormous bar, in which case everything's all in and all out all in one go. but this bar is not too big. It's a nice solid bar that implies that there is potentially more momentum in this. Let's not forget, of course, that we are actually even on the weekly quite nearby to this apex position, which I've described as being excuse me about this, which I've described as being in my next level of interest, which is around the 133 level, and that also connects quite nicely with a selection of opens and closes along here. Yes, we have tails poking out, but the opens and closes pretty much sit underneath the 133 level. Another key interesting point here is, of course, that price, having reacted very, very respectfully to the 50 EMA, is now trying to climb above it, and we also have the 20 and the 10 coming underneath price as if it's trying to carry it higher through the 50, where the 10 is possibly going to cross over the 50 potentially quite soon, and the 20 would possibly follow after that. If all things being bullish are allowed to play out, then I see these EMAs getting into the correct order, and these dynamic support EMAs coming underneath price and carrying it further. So I'm not saying that we're going to be just long all the way. I'm not saying that at all. I'm merely talking about where I see price trying to move to on its next stage. Now the daily is going to give us a little bit more detail about what's happening in the immediate. So what I did say last night, of course it's easy to say now because we've got a little tiny bit of price action here, although not a great deal, so I can still effectively say what I'm going to say without sounding like I'm talking too much in hindsight. What I did say last night was I felt that there was probably a little bit of space between this 10 and where the price action closed, which is just here. So we may need to see a little bit of a retracement to take off some of the pressure, pick up some more buying for a better price, and potentially that leads us into the next stage of aiming towards the top of the channel, and so we will head into some of this cyclical kind of activity. It is worth saying that, let me just get this into the right order. Do apologise. It is worth saying that where these channels are concerned, they are quite deep retracements, and these are on daily time frames. So if you are someone who likes to trade much lower time frames, there is activity on the pullbacks which may be of interest to you. So it's worth taking note of where the price looks like it might be interacting with some types of resistance to in order to enforce some kind of change or bounce. EMA is obviously an obvious choice, and trend lines, channel lines can be fairly useful, especially if they bisect with a key price level. Now we are at the 1-3 level. We did close above it on the monthly, but I do think perhaps a little bit of a pullback maybe on the cards, potentially for maybe the first 2 days of the week. And I'm really putting my neck out saying that, because it's quite difficult to sometimes predict exactly how many days a move is going to take. It could take one day, and we could do it today, and it's just one solid bar, connects with this, rejects it, all in one day, and then we're off again tomorrow. We spend the rest of the week being bullish. So it's not necessarily always the case that you can predict, but let's just say maybe for today and maybe for tomorrow we have a little bit of a selling period, and then, as I say, we pick up more buying, and we start trying to eke our way higher. The level that I have suggested that we might be trying to get to is now in terms of cycles. If we do move to here and we have this sort of characteristic of cycling, it may take us some time to get here. So don't imagine it because I'm talking about something on the monthly that that's going to happen imminently. I mean, it could do, but be perfectly honest with you, if we're going to follow through with this type of personality that GBP has created, then it might take a few cycles, or a couple of cycles to get there. Anyway, that's everything I want to say about GBP. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you next week. Bye bye.